Admiral Al stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. He had been watching stars for 200 years. In all that time, he had never lost a battle. The Empire ruled the galaxy because of commanders like him. They understood war. They understood how to win. The Empire had rules for everything. When they found a new world, they sent exactly the right number of ships. They used exactly the right amount of force. They followed exactly the right procedures. It worked every time. 3,000 years of victory proved it worked. Today was different, but not in any way that worried Al. Today they had found a new species. Humans, they called themselves. They came from a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The Empire's scouts had been watching them for months. The reports made Al laugh. These humans were like children playing with toys. Their ships moved slowly. Their weapons shot metal bullets instead of energy beams. They had only just learned how to travel between stars. Most funny of all, they fought each other constantly. Even now, with alien ships watching their world, different groups of humans were still having small wars with each other. "Primitive," said Commander, reading the latest reports. "They cannot even unite their own planet. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." Al nodded. The humans had maybe 50 ships in their entire fleet. The Empire was sending 12 dreadnoughts and 200 smaller vessels. It was like using a hammer to crush an insect. But the Empire always made sure. Overwhelming force prevented long wars. Long wars were expensive. The humans seemed to have no understanding of proper warfare. Their military records showed battle after battle where they wasted resources. They fought in places that had no strategic value. They continued fighting even when victory was impossible. They made emotional decisions instead of logical ones. Their generals ignored basic tactical principles. "Look at this," said, showing Al a human battle recording. "They are surrounded. Any civilized species would surrender. Instead, they keep fighting until every soldier is dead. What is the point?" Al studied the recording. The humans were clearly and outnumbered. Their position was hopeless. Yet they fought with a fury that made no sense. When their weapons broke, they used rocks. When their vehicles were destroyed, they continued on foot. When they ran out of ammunition, they attacked with knives and bare hands. "Inefficient," Al said. "They waste lives for no gain. This proves they are not advanced enough to join the Empire peacefully. We will have to conquer them." The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. The process was always the same. First, they showed their power by destroying something impressive but not too important. Usually, this made the new species surrender immediately. If not, they destroyed a few cities. That always worked. No species had ever continued fighting after losing their major population centers. The human world called Earth had 7 billion inhabitants. Their largest cities held millions of people. Destroying 1 or 2 cities would surely make them understand. Then they would surrender, and the Empire would add another obedient species to its collection. Al walked to the tactical display. It showed the human solar system in perfect detail. 9 planets, various moons, asteroid belts, and space stations. The humans had spread out quite far for such a young species, but their technology was still laughable. Their ships used chemical rockets for propulsion. Chemical rockets! The Empire had stopped using chemical rockets 5,000 years ago. Human weapons were equally primitive. They fired solid projectiles at speeds that barely qualified as dangerous. Their shields were simple metal armor. Their computers were so slow that Imperial battle computers could predict human movements hours in advance. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving multiple transmissions from the human fleet. They appear to be asking us to identify ourselves." The bridge crew laughed. The humans were asking the Empire to identify itself, as if the Empire needed permission to go anywhere in its own galaxy. "Respond with standard surrender terms," Al ordered. "Give them 1 hour to reply." The message went out across space. It was the same message the Empire had sent to every new species for 3. Submit to Imperial rule. Accept Imperial law. Provide Imperial tribute. Join the Empire peacefully or be conquered violently. Choose quickly. Al expected immediate surrender. The humans would see 12 Imperial dreadnoughts and know they had no chance. Every other species had made this calculation. Mathematics was universal. 12 Imperial dreadnoughts versus 50 primitive human ships equaled obvious defeat. But the human response surprised everyone on the bridge. "Unknown vessels," came a clear voice speaking accented Imperial standard. "You have entered human space without permission. You have 60 seconds to explain your presence or you will be considered hostile. The bridge fell silent. No species had ever demanded explanations from the Empire. No species had ever set ultimatums. No species had ever threatened Imperial forces. Did they just began? They did, Al said slowly. They just threatened us. The communications officer looked confused. Sir, they seem to believe they have some kind of authority here. Should I explain that this sector now belongs to the Empire? Al studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ships were moving into defensive positions around their worlds. They were not running away. They were not trying to hide. They were preparing to fight. This was new. This was interesting. Send another message, Al ordered. Inform them that resistance is futile. Tell them that the Empire has never been defeated. Tell them that surrender now will result in favorable terms. The response came back even faster than before. Message received and understood. Counteroffer rejected. You have 30 seconds to leave human space voluntarily. Commander stood up from his station. Sir, this is beyond disrespectful. This is impossible. They cannot seriously believe they can fight the Imperial Navy. Al was beginning to think these humans might be more interesting than expected. They were certainly more foolish than expected. Perhaps they were too primitive to understand what they faced. Perhaps their crude computers could not calculate the odds properly. Begin standard intimidation protocol, he ordered. Target the largest asteroid in their belt, full power, show them what Imperial weapons can do. The order went out. The flagship's main gun charged to full power. The asteroid was 3 kilometers wide, solid rock and metal. The energy beam hit it dead center. The asteroid exploded into glowing fragments that lit up the darkness of space. It was an impressive display, designed to show overwhelming power without actually harming anyone. Al waited for the human surrender message. Instead, every human ship, station, and installation in the entire solar system suddenly disappeared from Imperial sensors. What? Said, staring at his displays. Where did they go? Report, Al snapped. All targets have vanished from sensors, sir. Long range, short range, gravitational, electromagnetic, all readings show empty space where the human fleet was positioned. Al frowned. This made no sense. Ships could not simply disappear. Either the humans had far better technology than intelligence believed, or this was some kind of primitive jamming system. Move the fleet forward, he ordered. Battle formation. If they want to play games, we will show them the consequences. The Imperial fleet advanced into the human system, weapons ready, shields raised. 12 dreadnoughts led the way, followed by cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. It was enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. But something felt wrong. The space around them seemed too empty, too quiet. Where were the humans hiding? What were they planning? Admiral Al was about to learn that everything he thought he knew about warfare was wrong. Admiral commanded the Imperial fleet as it moved deeper into the human solar system. His sensors showed nothing but empty space where human ships should be. This confused him. The Empire had fought thousands of species, but none had ever simply vanished. Increase sensor sweeps, he ordered. They must be hiding behind planets or moons. The fleet moved in perfect formation. 12 dreadnoughts in the center, cruisers forming a protective ring around them, destroyers and corvettes screening the flanks. It was the same formation that had conquered galaxies. Every ship knew exactly where to be, exactly what to do. The human planet Earth grew larger on the viewing screens. It looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. Cities glowed like tiny lights across the night side. 7 billion humans lived on that world, completely unaware that their fate was being decided in the darkness above them. Sir, reported the sensor officer, I am detecting some unusual readings. Explain. There are objects moving in the asteroid belt, very small objects. They could be debris from our demonstration, but... But what? The movement patterns are not random. They appear to be following specific courses. Study the displays. Tiny blips appeared and disappeared at the edge of sensor range, too small to be ships, too organized to be natural. Could be automated probes, suggested the tactical officer. Perhaps the humans are trying to gather intelligence about our fleet. This made sense. Primitive species often sent small scout drones to study Imperial technology. It never helped them, but they always tried. Decided to ignore the minor contacts and focus on the main objective. Continue advance to Earth orbit, he commanded. Prepare orbital bombardment systems. We will destroy one of their major cities to demonstrate Imperial power. Then they will surrender. The fleet moved forward. Earth's moon came into view, gray and cratered. The humans had built some kind of base on its surface. Small structures dotted the lunar landscape, connected by roads and tunnels. It looked primitive but extensive. Target the lunar installations, ordered. Secondary bombardment, something to get their attention. Energy beams lanced down from the Imperial fleet. The human moon base erupted in explosions and fire. Domes collapsed, vehicles burned, the carefully built structures crumbled to dust. It was a perfect demonstration of Imperial superiority. But again, no surrender message came from Earth. Instead, something impossible happened. The first attack came from directly ahead of the Imperial fleet. Something small and fast streaked out of empty space and slammed into the lead dreadnought's forward shields. The impact was tiny but precise, hitting the exact point where 3 shield generators overlapped. Report, snapped. Forward shields down to 80%, sir. Single projectile impact. Kinetic weapon, very high velocity. Source. Unknown, sir. No ship detected in that vector. Before anyone could respond, more impacts hit the fleet. Dozens of small projectiles came from every direction. Each one targeted shield generators, sensor arrays, or weapon systems. Each impact was perfectly aimed at the most vulnerable points. Impossible, muttered the tactical officer. No one can target our weak points that precisely. Our shields use random frequency rotation. The targeting computers required for this accuracy do not exist. But the attacks continued. Tiny missiles appeared from nowhere, struck critical systems, and vanished back into space. The Imperial fleet found itself under assault by an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not counter. All ships defensive formation, ordered. Activate point defense systems, full sensor sweep. The Imperial fleet pulled into a tight defensive sphere. Every ship turned its weapons outward, scanning space for targets. Point defense lasers tracked frantically, trying to intercept the incoming projectiles. Some of the shots were successful. Tiny explosions lit up space as Imperial defenses destroyed human missiles. But for every projectile they stopped, 3 more got through, and the humans seemed to have an endless supply. Sir, reported the sensor officer, his voice tight with confusion, I am detecting energy signatures from the asteroid belt. Multiple sources. They appear to be launching platforms. Launching platforms? The asteroids themselves, sir. The humans have somehow turned asteroids into missile bases. Stared at the tactical display. The asteroid belt stretched across millions of kilometers of space. There were thousands of asteroids out there, maybe tens of thousands, if the humans had weaponized even a fraction of them. How is this possible? He asked. Our intelligence reports showed no military installations in the asteroid belt, only mining operations. Perhaps, suggested the tactical officer slowly, the mining operations were the military installations. The implications hit like a physical blow. The humans had turned their entire industrial infrastructure into weapons. Mining platforms became missile launchers. Ore processing stations became ammunition factories. Asteroid refineries became military bases. It was brilliant. It was insane. It was completely against every rule of civilized warfare. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. Put it through. A human face appeared on the screen. Female, middle-aged, wearing some kind of military uniform. Her eyes were calm but hard. Behind her could see what looked like a command center filled with busy humans working at primitive computers. Imperial Fleet, the human said. This is Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked human installations without provocation. You have entered our space without permission. You have threatened our civilian populations. This constitutes an act of war. Found his voice. You cannot be serious. You face the might of the Empire. Surrender now and your species will be treated with mercy. The human admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, you seem to misunderstand the situation. You are the ones who should consider surrender. You are outnumbered and fighting in our territory. Laughed, you have primitive chemical weapons and metal armor. We have plasma cannons and energy shields. Yes, Admiral agreed. You have very impressive technology. Unfortunately for you, we have something better. What could you possibly have that is better than Imperial technology? Experience. The transmission cut off. Immediately, the human attacks intensified, but now could see the pattern. The small missiles were not random strikes. They were coordinated surgical attacks designed to disable specific systems in a specific order. First, the humans targeted long-range sensors, blinding the Imperial fleet. Then they hit communications arrays, isolating ships from each other. Next came targeting computers, making it harder for Imperial weapons to lock onto targets. Finally, they began systematically destroying weapon systems themselves. This is not how warfare works, the tactical officer said, watching his displays fill with damage reports. You are supposed to target the enemy's main weapons first. You do not start by destroying sensors. Unless, said slowly, you want the enemy to be confused and frightened before you kill them. The truth was becoming clear. The humans were not fighting to win quickly. They were fighting to teach the Imperial fleet what fear felt like. Every disabled system, every blinded sensor, every severed communication link was designed to create maximum psychological impact. And it was working. Could see the confusion spreading through his fleet. Ships were requesting orders they could not hear. Gunners were firing at targets they could not see. Commanders were making decisions based on information they did not have. Sir, came a panicked voice from the communications station. The destroyer is reporting boarders. Boarders how? We have seen no enemy ships. Unknown, sir. This captain reports that small craft somehow attached to their hull. Human soldiers are cutting their way into the ship. Stared at the tactical display. Though was in the center of the Imperial formation, surrounded by other ships. How had human boarding craft reached it undetected? All ships scan for small craft. Emergency protocols, prepare for boarding actions. But the humans had already thought of that. As Imperial ships turned their sensors inward to scan for boarders, the missile attacks from the asteroid belt intensified. While the fleet was distracted looking for small targets, large targets hit them from long range. Clever, admitted grudgingly. Force us to choose between two different threats, make us react instead of act. The battle was becoming something had never experienced before. Imperial doctrine assumed that superior technology would always defeat inferior technology. It assumed that overwhelming force would always defeat smaller forces. It assumed that civilized tactics would always defeat primitive tactics. But the humans were not fighting a civilized battle. They were fighting like wild animals. They attacked from unexpected directions, used unconventional weapons, and seemed to have no concern for proper military procedures. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. Sir, reported the sensor officer, long-range scanners are detecting more objects approaching from the outer system. Large objects, moving very fast. Enemy reinforcements. Unknown, sir, but based on trajectory and velocity. They appear to be asteroids, very large asteroids, moving at significant fractions of light speed. Felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not just weaponized their asteroid belt. They had weaponized asteroids as kinetic missiles. Rock and metal moving at near light speed carried more destructive power than most Imperial weapons. How long until impact? 47 minutes, sir. 47 minutes to decide whether to retreat from an enemy that should not have been able to hurt them. 47 minutes to accept that everything the Empire believed about warfare might be wrong. Admiral was beginning to understand that this was not going to be a simple conquest. The destroyer was dying. Admiral watched the damage reports flood in from his tactical display. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Main power offline, weapons systems destroyed, life support failing. But what confused him most was how it was happening. Report from boarding teams, came the panicked voice of Captain from these humans. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. Explain. They do not try to capture our bridge or engineering sections. They do not attempt to disable our weapons systematically. Instead, they blow things up, everything. They destroy whatever they can reach, then move on to destroy more things. Pulled up the internal security feeds from What he saw made no sense. The human boarding party consisted of only 12 soldiers, but they were causing damage that should have required 100 troops. They moved through the ship like a swarm of insects, but insects with explosives. Instead of fighting his marines directly, they dropped bombs in corridors and sealed the exits. Instead of taking prisoners, they destroyed life support systems and forced entire sections to evacuate. Instead of following predictable assault patterns, they split up and attacked from 6 directions at once. "Sir," Captain's voice was getting weaker as his ship lost power. "One of my officers managed to capture a human soldier. We tried to interrogate her for information about their attack plans." "What did you learn?" "She laughed at us. She said they do not have attack plans. She said humans make new plans every few minutes based on what happens. She said planning too far ahead in battle is, I believe her word was stupid." This violated every principle of military science. Successful warfare required detailed planning, careful coordination, and strict adherence to proven tactics. The Empire had spent 3,000 years developing the perfect military doctrine. How could random improvisation be more effective than careful planning? But the evidence was right in front of him. There had been one of the most advanced destroyers in the Imperial fleet. Now it was a floating wreck, destroyed by 12 humans with primitive weapons and no plan. "All ships," ordered, "implement anti-boarding protocols, seal internal bulkheads, post guards at all entry points. Do not allow human forces to move freely through your ships." The response came immediately. More small craft were attaching to Imperial hulls. But these were not normal boarding craft. Some appeared to be modified construction vehicles. Others looked like civilian transports. One appeared to be some kind of garbage hauler. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the humans are using non-military vessels for military operations. This violates the Galactic Convention on Warfare. Civilian craft cannot be used for hostile actions." "Tell that to the humans," said grimly. The modified garbage hauler had somehow attached itself to the heavy cruiser N. Instead of deploying soldiers, it began pumping some kind of corrosive substance into the ship's hull. Within minutes, the N's outer armor was dissolving like ice in acid. A construction vehicle latched onto the dreadnought and started drilling through its thick armor with industrial mining equipment. The civilian transport released a cloud of metallic chaff that interfered with sensors and communications. "How do they expect to win a war with garbage haulers and construction equipment?" the tactical officer asked. Was beginning to understand. They are not trying to win a war with garbage haulers. They are trying to win a war with anything they can find. They do not separate military tools from civilian tools. Everything is a weapon if you use it correctly. This concept was so alien that it took several minutes to sink in. Imperial military doctrine carefully distinguished between military and civilian resources. Warships were for fighting. Civilian ships were for transportation. Mining equipment was for mining. The categories were clear and separate. But humans apparently saw no such distinctions. If a garbage hauler could damage an enemy ship, it became a weapon. If construction equipment could break through armor, it became military hardware. If civilian transports could confuse sensors, they became electronic warfare platforms. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Al." Winced, Admiral Al would not be pleased with these developments. The operation was supposed to have been finished hours ago. "Report," came the Admiral's cold voice. "The humans are proving more resistant than anticipated, sir. They employ unconventional tactics that our doctrine does not address." "Unconventional how?" "They do not fight according to any recognizable military principles, sir. They use civilian equipment as weapons. They attack randomly instead of following strategic objectives. They seem to prefer destroying things to capturing them." There was a long pause. "Are you telling me that the most advanced military force in galactic history is being defeated by primitives with no military training?" "Not defeated, sir, but challenged. I am sending reinforcements. Admiral's battle group will arrive within 6 hours. Do not allow this situation to worsen." The transmission ended. Knew that Admiral commanded some of the Empire's most experienced units. Surely professional soldiers could handle human irregulars, no matter how unconventional their methods. But first, he had to deal with the immediate crisis. The kinetic missiles the humans had launched were still approaching. 47 minutes had become 12 minutes. 12 minutes until several asteroids moving at significant fractions of light speed would impact his fleet. "Can we shoot them down?" he asked. "Negative, sir. They are too large and moving too fast. Our point defense systems are designed to intercept small missiles, not asteroid-sized projectiles." "Can we evade them?" "Also negative, sir. Our ships are not maneuverable enough to avoid objects at those velocities." Stared at the tactical display. The human kinetic missiles were crude weapons, essentially just rocks thrown very hard, but they carried more destructive power than Imperial plasma cannons. Worse, there was no defense against them except to not be where they were going to hit. "All ships, emergency acceleration. Exit the asteroid impact zone immediately." The Imperial fleet began moving as fast as their engines could push them. But moving a battle formation of 200 ships was like trying to dance with a mountain. They were too large, too heavy, too committed to their current positions. The first asteroid missed the fleet by several thousand kilometers. It was still close enough that its passage disrupted sensors and communications across half the formation. The second asteroid was more accurate. It struck empty space where the dreadnought Eth had been positioned only minutes before. The explosion lit up the entire system. The asteroid's kinetic energy converted to thermal energy in a fraction of a second, creating a ball of plasma brighter than most stars. Even missing its target, the blast wave damaged ships dozens of kilometers away. The third asteroid found its mark. The heavy cruiser took a direct hit amidships. For an instant, the ship simply ceased to exist. Then the explosion reached outward, vaporizing everything within a 50-kilometer radius. 3 destroyers and a dozen smaller vessels vanished in the plasma wave. "Status report," ordered, his voice steady despite the devastation around him. 7 ships destroyed, sir. 14 more severely damaged. Estimated casualties exceed 15,000 personnel. 15,000 Imperial soldiers, dead in seconds. Killed by rocks thrown by primitives who supposedly did not understand warfare. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving another transmission from the human admiral." Admiral's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Al could see humans working calmly at their stations, as if destroying Imperial warships was routine business. "Imperial Commander," she said, "I hope you are beginning to understand your situation. You entered our system with overwhelming technological superiority. You expected easy victory over a primitive species, but you made one critical error." "What error?" asked. "You assumed that technology wins wars, but technology does not win wars. Soldiers win wars, and you brought soldiers who have never lost a battle to fight soldiers who have never known peace." The human admiral gestured to someone off-screen. New contacts appeared on tactical display. Human ships were emerging from hiding places throughout the system, not just military vessels, but converted civilian craft of every description. "Your people have been the dominant military power for 3,000 years, Admiral continued. "In all that time, has any species ever seriously threatened the Empire? Has any enemy ever forced your soldiers to adapt, to innovate, to evolve?" Realized where this was leading, but the implications were too disturbing to accept. "Humans have been fighting each other for our entire recorded history," the Admiral said. "Every generation has faced new weapons, new tactics, new ways of killing and dying. Every human military leader has studied thousands of battles, analyzed countless defeats, learned from endless mistakes. We have been preparing for war our entire existence, even when we did not know what we were preparing for." The transmission paused. When Admiral spoke again, her voice was softer but somehow more frightening. "Admiral, you sent soldiers who have only known victory to fight soldiers who have only known war. Did you really think superior technology would be enough?" Before could respond, the human fleet attacked. But this was not the chaotic assault he expected. This was coordinated, professional, and absolutely devastating. The humans came from every direction at once, using the asteroid belt, planetary gravity wells, and the system's star itself as cover. Their weapons were primitive but precisely targeted. Their ships were crude but perfectly positioned. Their tactics were unconventional but brutally effective. Within the first hour of the main assault, Admiral realized that everything the Empire believed about warfare was not just wrong, but dangerously, catastrophically wrong. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that this was only the beginning. Admiral Al arrived in the human solar system with 3 complete battle fleets. 900 ships of the Imperial Navy, the largest military force assembled in over a century. Enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. Enough soldiers to conquer a dozen systems. He found the wreckage of Admiral fleet scattered across millions of kilometers of space. "Report," he ordered, his voice cutting through the silence on his flagship's bridge. 73 ships destroyed, sir, his tactical officer replied. 147 damaged beyond repair. Admiral's command vessel is intact but has suffered catastrophic systems failure. Total casualties approach 40,000 personnel. Al studied the tactical displays in disbelief. Had commanded one of the finest battle groups in the Imperial Navy. Professional soldiers, advanced weapons, proven tactics. How had primitive humans achieved such devastation? "Where is Admiral now?" "His flagship is retreating to the outer system, sir. They report complete breakdown of command and control. The humans appear to have introduced some kind of computer virus into their systems." "Computer virus?" "Yes, sir. It spreads through standard Imperial communication networks. It does not destroy data, but it randomizes tactical displays, reverses navigational commands, and plays human music through internal speakers." Al blinked. "Music." "Something called rock and roll, sir. Very loud, very aggressive. It makes concentration difficult." This was beyond unconventional. This was insane. What military force used music as a weapon? "Sir," interrupted the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through." A human face appeared on the screen. Male, older, wearing a simple military uniform. His hair was gray, his face lined with age, but his eyes held an alertness that made Al uncomfortable. "Admiral Al," the human said, "I am General, Commander of Human Ground Forces. I believe we need to talk. I do not negotiate with primitives who attack Imperial forces." "Admiral, with respect, you are the one who attacked us. We are simply defending ourselves. And I should mention that your Admiral has agreed to a temporary ceasefire while we have this conversation." Al checked his displays. His fleet had indeed stopped moving and was holding position at the system's edge. "What did you do to him?" "We offered him a choice. Continue fighting and watch his remaining ships be destroyed one by one, or accept a temporary ceasefire and give his soldiers a chance to survive. He chose survival. I hope you are equally practical." "You speak as if you have won some great victory. You face 3 Imperial battle fleets, 900 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Surrender now, and I will consider showing mercy." General smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, may I ask you a question?" "Speak." "In your 3,000 years of conquest, how many species have ever defeated an Imperial fleet in open battle?" Al considered the question. "None." "How many have ever forced the Empire to commit multiple fleets to a single system?" "None." "How many have ever caused Imperial forces to retreat?" Al said nothing. "None," General answered for him. "In 3,000 years, the Empire has never faced serious military resistance. You have conquered peaceful species, primitive tribes, and scattered colonies. You have never fought a real war." "The Empire has fought thousands of wars." "No, Admiral, the Empire has conducted thousands of conquests. There is a difference. Conquest is what you do to someone weaker than yourself. War is what happens when you fight someone who can fight back." The transmission paused. Behind General, Al could see activity in what appeared to be a military command center. Humans moved with efficient purpose, managing displays and communications. They looked professional, experienced, dangerous. "Admiral," continued, "I want to show you something." The tactical display changed, showing the entire human solar system. Red icons marked the positions of Al's 3 battle fleets. Blue icons marked human positions. Al studied the display and felt cold fear creep up his spine. There were blue icons everywhere, not just in the asteroid belt or around Earth, but throughout the entire system. Hidden in planetary shadows, concealed in cometary orbits, scattered across millions of kilometers of apparently empty space. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "The complete human defense network," replied. "Every red icon on that display is currently being targeted by at least 12 human weapon systems. Some are targeted by significantly more. Al counted quickly. His 900 ships faced what appeared to be thousands of human weapons platforms. Impossible. Our intelligence reports showed no such installations. Your intelligence reports were accurate. These installations did not exist when your scouts surveyed our system. Then how? We built them. In the 6 days since your first fleet arrived, human industrial capacity has been converted entirely to military production. Every mining station is now a weapons platform. Every cargo hauler is now a missile launcher. Every civilian manufacturing facility is now producing military hardware. The implications hit Al like a physical blow. You militarized your entire civilization in 6 days. Admiral, you misunderstand. Our entire civilization was already militarized. We just stopped pretending it was not. General gestured to someone off-screen. The tactical display zoomed in on one section of the asteroid belt. This is Mining Station 7. Yesterday it processed ore for civilian manufacturing. Today it is armed with 64 kinetic accelerators and enough ammunition to destroy a dozen dreadnoughts. The conversion took 14 hours. The display shifted to show a different location. This is the cargo vessel Prosperity Dawn. Yesterday it carried manufactured goods between Earth and Mars. Today it carries 400 nuclear warheads and enough fuel for a one-way journey to your flagship. The conversion took 8 hours. Al watched in growing horror as the display showed installation after installation, ship after ship, all converted from civilian to military use with terrifying efficiency. How is this possible? Because, Admiral, humans do not think the way your people think. You see civilian infrastructure and military infrastructure as separate things. We see infrastructure. You see cargo ships and warships as different categories of vessel. We see ships. You see mining equipment and weapons as unrelated technologies. We see tools. The display returned to the full system view. Even more blue icons had appeared. In the past 6 days, human colonies throughout this system have constructed over 4,000 military installations using nothing but standard civilian equipment. We have converted 600 civilian vessels into warships. We have turned our entire industrial base into a weapons production facility. Al found his voice. This level of militarization should have taken months, even years. It would have if we had started from zero, but humans never start from zero when it comes to war, Admiral. Every human child learns military history in school. Every human engineer studies the military applications of their work. Every human leader plans for the possibility of armed conflict. We do not choose to be warriors. We are born warriors who sometimes pretend to be civilians. General leaned forward, his expression serious. Your people have been at peace for 3,000 years. You have forgotten what war really means. War is not about having better weapons or more ships. War is about being willing to sacrifice everything you have to destroy your enemy. War is about turning every tool into a weapon, every citizen into a soldier, every resource into ammunition. The transmission paused again. When spoke, his voice was quieter but somehow more threatening. Admiral, you brought 900 warships to fight 50 human vessels. But you are not fighting 50 human vessels. You are fighting 7 billion humans who have spent their entire history learning how to kill efficiently. Every man, woman, and child in this system is now part of our military. Every factory, mine, and farm is now supporting our war effort. Every piece of technology we possess has been weaponized. Al stared at the display. The human system looked like a trap, with his forces at the center and enemies surrounding them from every direction. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand something that the Empire has forgotten. Military technology is not what makes a species dangerous. Military knowledge is not what makes a species dangerous. Military experience is what makes a species dangerous. And humans have more military experience than any species in this galaxy. You would threaten the entire Imperial Navy. Admiral, I am not threatening your Navy. I am educating it. Your ships can destroy our worlds, yes. Your weapons can kill billions of our people, yes. But we can do the same to you. The question is not who has better technology. The question is who is more willing to use it. Gestured to his displays again. You have 900 ships and perhaps 1 million soldiers. We have 7 billion people who have been preparing for this war their entire lives without knowing it. Every human who has ever studied military history is now analyzing your tactics. Every human who has ever played strategic games is now planning attacks on your forces. Every human who has ever read about war is now ready to fight one. Al realized with growing dread that he was looking at something the Empire had never encountered before. Not just military resistance, but total war. An entire species organized for conflict, ready to sacrifice everything for victory. "This cannot be sustained," he said. "No civilization can maintain full military mobilization indefinitely." General smiled again, and this time it was genuinely frightening. "Admiral, you still do not understand. This is not full military mobilization. This is Tuesday." The transmission ended, leaving Al staring at tactical displays that showed his forces completely surrounded by an enemy he was only beginning to understand. For the first time in 200 years of military service, Admiral Al was afraid. Admiral Al had not slept in 3 days. His flagship's bridge had become a fortress of paranoia, with every sensor scanning for threats that could come from anywhere at any time. The humans had not attacked his main fleet yet, but they had not needed to. The waiting was destroying his forces from within. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we have lost contact with the scout group we sent to investigate the human colony at." "Lost contact how?" "Complete communications blackout 12 hours ago. Last transmission indicated they had found the colony abandoned." Al studied the star charts. Was 4 light-years from Earth. The humans could not possibly have evacuated an entire colony and traveled that far in such short time. Unless... "Sir, receiving priority transmission from Admiral N's force." Admiral N commanded the 3rd Fleet, which Al had sent to secure the outer colonies. His face appeared on the communication screen, but something was wrong. His usually perfect uniform was torn and dirty. His command center behind him showed damage and emergency lighting. "Admiral Al," and said, his voice tight with strain, "I need to report a complete tactical situation change." "Report." "The human colonies were not abandoned, sir. They were bait. When we moved to occupy the settlement, we discovered it was actually a military installation disguised as a civilian colony. The entire planet was armed." Al felt cold dread settling in his chest. "Casualties." 47 ships destroyed, sir. The humans used the planet's mass driver to accelerate asteroids at our fleet. When we attempted orbital bombardment, hidden surface installations fired nuclear missiles through our formation. When we tried to withdraw, human ships emerged from concealment throughout the system. "Where are those ships now?" "Following us, sir. They are not trying to destroy my fleet. They are herding us toward the system." "Herding you?" "Yes, sir. Every time we try to change course, they attack from the direction we want to go. They are forcing us to move where they want us to move. Sir, I believe this is part of a larger strategy." Al pulled up the tactical displays showing all Imperial forces in the region. 3rd Fleet was indeed being driven toward. 2nd Fleet was still dealing with sabotage problems in the Wolf system. 4th Fleet had gone silent near Alpha. For the first time, he began to see the pattern. The humans were not simply defending their territory. They were manipulating Imperial forces, moving them into positions where they could be isolated and destroyed piecemeal. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "long-range sensors are detecting movement throughout the local stellar group. Multiple human fleets, all moving in coordinated patterns." "How many fleets?" "Unknown, sir. The humans appear to have forces hidden throughout dozens of systems. They are revealing new ships every few hours." This was impossible. Intelligence reports showed that humans had only recently achieved interstellar travel. They should not have had time to build fleets and station them across multiple star systems. "Sir, incoming transmission, General again." The human general appeared on screen, but this time he was not in a command center. He appeared to be on a ship, and behind him Al could see what looked like a weapons armory. "Admiral Al," said, "I believe it is time for us to meet in person." "I do not meet with terrorists." "Admiral, nothing we have done constitutes terrorism. We have attacked only military targets. We have followed all civilized rules of engagement. We have offered surrender terms to your defeated forces. We are conducting legal warfare according to galactic conventions. You are using civilian installations for military purposes. You are hiding weapons in non-military facilities. You are disguising colonies as military bases." Actually, Admiral, we are disguising military bases as civilian colonies. There is a difference. The implications of that statement hit Al like a physical blow. You mean, every human settlement outside Earth is a military installation. Every human colony is an armed fortress. Every human civilian facility is capable of instant conversion to military use. We have been building a military empire disguised as a civilian expansion program. For how long? Since we first detected your scout ships 18 months ago. We have been preparing for this war since before you knew we existed. General moved closer to the camera, his expression serious. Admiral, I am currently aboard a human vessel approaching your position. I will arrive at your flagship in approximately 30 minutes. I suggest we discuss terms. Terms? You are in no position to dictate terms. Actually, I am in an excellent position. Your forces are scattered across a dozen systems, being systematically destroyed by human fleets that outnumber you 10 to 1. Your supply lines have been cut. Your communications are being jammed. Your allies do not know where you are or what has happened to you. Paused, letting that sink in. But more importantly, Admiral, you are about to learn something that will change the Empire forever. What could primitives possibly teach the Empire? The difference between conquest and war. The transmission ended. 30 minutes later, proximity alarms began sounding throughout Al's flagship. Sir, single small craft approaching. It is broadcasting human identification codes and requesting permission to dock. Al stared at his tactical displays. One tiny ship approaching a dreadnought that carried more firepower than most planetary defense systems. Either the humans were suicidal, or they were making a statement about their confidence. Let them dock, full security escort to the conference room. 20 minutes later, Admiral Al faced General across a conference table in the heart of an Imperial dreadnought. The human was older than he had appeared on screen, probably past 60 in human years. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations, carried no visible weapons, and seemed completely relaxed despite being surrounded by Imperial soldiers. General Al began, "You have requested this meeting, speak." "Admiral, I want to tell you a story." "I did not come here for stories." "Yes, you did, you just do not know it yet." Leaned back in his chair, completely at ease in the military heart of an enemy vessel. 3,000 years ago, your people conquered the galaxy through superior technology and tactics. Every species you encountered was weaker, less organized, less experienced in warfare. You developed a perfect system for conquest, and then you made a mistake. What mistake? You stopped learning. Gestured toward the walls of the dreadnought around them. This ship represents the pinnacle of Imperial military technology. It is exactly like ships your people built 1,000 years ago, just bigger and with more powerful weapons. Your tactics are exactly like tactics you used 1,000 years ago, just applied with more force. Your strategy is exactly like strategy you used 1,000 years ago, just implemented on a larger scale. Those tactics have proven successful for 3. Against enemies who could not fight back, yes. But Admiral, you have never faced an enemy that could learn from your victories. Stood and walked to the conference room's viewport, looking out at the human solar system. Every species you conquered taught you that superior technology wins wars. Every victory reinforced the lesson that overwhelming force guarantees success. Every campaign proved that civilized tactics defeat primitive tactics. You learned these lessons so well that you forgot they might not always be true. They are universal principles of warfare. No, Admiral, they are principles of conquest. Warfare is something entirely different. Turned back to face Al. Humans have never stopped learning about war because humans have never stopped fighting wars. Every generation faces new enemies, new weapons, new tactics. Every human military leader studies not just victories, but defeats. Every human soldier trains not just to follow orders, but to adapt when orders no longer make sense. What is your point? My point is that you brought conquest tactics to fight a war enemy. You brought 3,000 years of successful conquest experience to fight a species with 10,000 years of war experience. You brought soldiers who have always won to fight soldiers who have learned how to lose and keep fighting. General sat back down, his expression serious. Admiral, in the past week, your forces have learned more about real warfare than the Empire has learned in 3,000 years. You have discovered that superior technology does not guarantee victory. You have discovered that overwhelming force can be turned against itself. You have discovered that civilized tactics fail against enemies who refuse to be civilized. You are proposing surrender. I am proposing education. Activated a portable display device he had brought with him. It showed tactical information from battles throughout the region. Your Admiral N has learned that planets can be weapons. Your Admiral has learned that civilian infrastructure can become military infrastructure instantly. Your scattered fleet commanders have learned that small forces can defeat large forces if they are willing to accept casualties that large forces cannot. The display showed ship movements, casualty reports, tactical analyses. But most importantly, Admiral, you have learned that the galaxy is not as peaceful as you believed. Humans are not the only species that has been preparing for war. We are simply the first species strong enough to teach you that your conquest model has limitations. Al studied the information on display. It showed not just human forces, but other species, other fleets, other military buildups throughout the galaxy. What are you showing me? The future, Admiral? A galaxy where the Empire's 3,000 years of conquest experience meets species with thousands of years of war experience. A galaxy where superior technology and overwhelming force are not enough to guarantee victory. Leaned forward. You can continue this war, Admiral. You can bring more fleets, more soldiers, more weapons. You can eventually destroy humanity through sheer attrition. But the cost will be enormous, and the lessons you learn will spread to every species in the galaxy. You are threatening the Empire. I am offering the Empire a choice. Continue using conquest tactics and watch your enemies learn to counter them, or learn warfare tactics and remain the dominant power in the galaxy. General stood again. Admiral, humans do not want to destroy the Empire. We want to join it. But we want to join it as partners, not subjects. We want to teach you what we have learned about warfare, and we want to learn what you know about governance and technology. And if the Empire refuses, then the Empire will discover that conquest and war are very different things, and it will discover that humans are very good teachers. Admiral Al looked at the tactical displays, at the reports of scattered fleets and impossible tactics, at the evidence that everything the Empire believed might be wrong. For the first time in his 200-year career, he made a decision based not on imperial doctrine, but on common sense. General, he said slowly, what exactly are you proposing? The human smiled, and for the first time it was not a frightening expression. I am proposing that the Empire's finest strategist learn something new about strategy, and I am proposing that humanity's finest warriors teach him. Outside the conference room windows, human and imperial ships hung in space, weapons trained on each other but no longer firing. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire was about to negotiate rather than conquer. And Admiral Al realized that he was about to learn what real warfare looked like.